Just hours before the Browns faced the Ravens, the real drama wasn't on the field, it was off it. Word leaked of a potential $100 million offer from Baltimore to pry Shedeur Sanders out of Cleveland. The timing was surgical. Whether orchestrated by Sanders' camp or rival executives, the leak disrupted more than game prep. It shifted headlines, altered perceptions, and positioned Sanders as a quarterback too valuable to ignore. The Ravens had seen enough of his upside to wager their future. But the Browns, perhaps expecting this exact move.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
What this tells us is that quarterback deals aren't just about throws and stats. They're about control, media, and leverage. Harbaugh's silence didn't just protect team strategy, it left space for speculation to grow. And in that space, Sanders' stock soared. He isn't just another draft prospect. He's part of a new NFL era where perception can drive actual market value. Refusing to sit behind Lamar wasn't just a personal decision. It was a signal to every team in the league. In this version of the game, confidence is currency, and Sanders knows how to spend it. It's one thing to be a top prospect. It's another to be the kind of rookie quarterback that has two NFL franchises dancing around one of the biggest trade rumors the league's seen in years. That's exactly where Shedeur Sanders found himself. Right at the center of a potential $100 million offer that had the Baltimore Ravens and Cleveland Browns locked in a very real, very strategic tug-of-war. This wasn't tabloid fodder. This was a serious negotiation that nearly became the biggest off-season headline, and depending on who you believe, it should have. The story exploded just days before the Ravens were set to face the Browns, when insiders leaked details of a trade offer so massive, so bold, that the entire league took notice. Baltimore was reportedly willing to give up a treasure chest of assets. First-round picks, young defensive starters, seasoned veterans. They weren't just trying to beef up their depth chart, they were trying to buy their future. And the player they were targeting? A rookie quarterback who hadn't even played a full NFL season. That's the level of belief Baltimore had in Shedeur Sanders. And the best part? They weren't even trying to hide it, not really. At a press conference that should have been focused on game prep, Ravens head coach John Harbaugh was asked directly about the trade rumors. And instead of denying them outright, he pivoted, dodged, deflected. It was evasive and it was calculated. Because in the NFL, when a coach doesn't shoot down a rumor, it usually means the rumor was real enough to not mess with. Harbaugh's silence spoke volumes. There was a deal on the table. Or at least there were serious talks. But just as quickly as the rumor spread, the trade didn't happen. Why? Because Shedeur Sanders reportedly declined the move. Not out of disloyalty and not out of hesitation, but because he didn't want to sit behind Lamar Jackson. That one condition changed everything. Because Baltimore's plan wasn't to dethrone Lamar overnight. It was to secure a successor. The idea was simple. Bring in Shedeur, let him develop under an MVP-caliber quarterback, and create a smooth transition whenever the time came to move on. That works on paper. But Sanders made it clear that he's not interested in waiting. The message couldn't have been louder without being said. If you want Shedeur Sanders, you start him. Right away. It's the kind of confidence that could turn teams off, or, if you're like the Ravens, it's exactly what makes you believe he's the real thing. Because quarterbacks who don't believe they're ready usually aren't. But the ones who carry themselves like franchise players before they even take the field? Those are the ones front offices are willing to gamble on. Baltimore didn't just want potential. They wanted the mindset. And they were willing to invest big. But the Browns weren't selling. Not even for $100 million in total value. That decision tells you everything you need to know about how Cleveland views their quarterback situation. The Browns have dealt with years of instability at the position. High picks, short leashes, injuries, off-field headlines. They've been through it all. And now that they finally have a young quarterback with composure, leadership, and franchise potential, they're not letting him go. No matter how massive the offer. Keeping Shedeur wasn't just about rejecting a trade. It was about doubling down. The Browns essentially told the world, we're not interested in flipping a rookie for draft capital. We're building around, and that choice wasn't made lightly. Passing up on that kind of haul, especially when you're offered both long-term picks and immediate defensive help, is a massive decision. Cleveland could have reshaped their roster in a single move. But they looked at Sanders, saw the confidence, the control, the upside, and said no. The timing of the leak made the whole thing even more suspect. It didn't just happen to break right before kickoff. It came out at a moment when both teams were preparing for a high-stakes divisional game. It was disruptive, it was targeted, and it was loaded with specifics, enough to raise eyebrows in every front office across the league. And that's why so many people believe the leak didn't come from Baltimore or Cleveland. It came from Sanders' own camp. Because what better way to elevate your quarterback's profile than by leaking that a perennial playoff team is ready to back up the truck and trade half their future for him? It instantly boosts Sanders' perceived value, reshapes how other teams view him, and adds pressure on his current team to commit. Even if the trade never materialized, the impact was real. Shedeur went from promising rookie to QB worth 9 figures in assets, without having to say a word. That's not just publicity. That's leverage. The kind of leverage that turns whispers into headlines and quiet interest into bidding wars. And here's where the story gets even more layered. Because while Sanders was reportedly unwilling to sit behind Lamar Jackson, that decision isn't as wild as it sounds. He's not saying Lamar isn't great. He's saying he is ready. That he doesn't want to wait his turn. That he's not here for a redshirt year. That's bold. But it's also telling. That refusal to accept a backup role is what separates starters from franchise guys. The ones who make it don't usually walk in hoping to be mentored. They walk in expecting to lead. And whether the league agrees or not, Shedeur Sanders has made his stance crystal clear. The Browns believe in him. The Ravens tried to steal him. And now, every team that passed on him in the draft or looked at him as a long-term project has to reevaluate. Because if a franchise like Baltimore, who rarely makes emotional moves, was ready to push that many chips in, what does that say about his ceiling? And let's not gloss over the Ravens here either. The fact that they made this offer speaks to how they see their own future. Lamar Jackson is still elite. Still their starter. But this entire saga revealed something Baltimore never said out loud. They're planning for the day he's not. Whether that's in 2 years, 3 years, or sooner, this wasn't a luxury offer. This was a succession offer. The kind you make when you don't want to be caught without a plan. And now that the deal didn't go through, there's no pretending it didn't happen. Lamar knows they made a run at someone else. The locker room knows. The fanbase knows. It's not a controversy yet. But it's a ripple. And ripples have a way of turning into waves. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders is still in Cleveland, holding more leverage than most rookies ever do. He now has a valuation. A benchmark. A very public message sent to the rest of the NFL. If you want him, come correct. This wasn't just a story about what almost happened. It's a preview of what's coming. Shedeur's stock is rising. The perception around him has shifted. And the next time a team comes calling, the conversation won't start with, is he worth it? It'll start with, can we beat what Baltimore offered? This is the modern NFL, part sport, part chess match, part media spectacle. And this saga checked every box. Tell us what you think. Did Cleveland make the right call by holding on to Sanders? Did Baltimore overreach, or are they playing 4D chess? And does Shedeur's refusal to be a backup show supreme confidence? Or does it add pressure he didn't need? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button if this whole thing gave you whiplash, share it with someone who loves trade drama, and make sure you're subscribed. Because the next time Shedeur Sanders makes a move, it won't be a rumor. It'll be a headline. At this point, the Shedeur Sanders trade saga isn't just a headline, it's a moment. A ripple in the larger NFL ecosystem that's exposing something most fans don't always see. How carefully calculated, high stakes, and personal the business of football really is. Because make no mistake, this wasn't just about a quarterback. It was about a franchise's identity. About a team's belief in the future. About a young player's refusal to follow the script. Start with the Ravens. Baltimore is not a franchise known for reckless moves. They're not reactionary. They're not the type to sell the farm unless the return changes everything. And in their eyes, Shedeur Sanders wasn't just a quarterback prospect. He was a franchise quarterback. A once-in-a-decade kind of player. The type you try to get before everyone else realizes what you're doing. That's why the rumored offer, north of $100 million in total value, didn't feel out of place. Felt like a chess move. Risky? Sure. But totally in line with the way forward-thinking teams operate when they believe they've identified the one. But this is where the story takes a sharp left turn. Because Shedeur wasn't interested. Not because he didn't see the opportunity. Not because he feared competition. But because the role being offered wasn't a starting job. He would have had to sit behind Lamar Jackson. And for most rookie quarterbacks, that would be a dream scenario. You sit for a couple seasons, learn from a league MVP, develop slowly, and then step into the spotlight when the time is right. That's the Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes template. Teams love it. GMs love it. Coaches love it. But Shedeur? He wasn't here for that. He didn't want to wait. He didn't want to sit. And he made it clear that he sees himself as a starter now. And just like that, the Ravens' plan crumbled. Not because the numbers didn't work. Not because the deal couldn't be done. But because Shedeur Sanders said, "Not like that." Let's pause right there. That kind of control over a negotiation, from a rookie, is almost unheard of. This isn't a 10-year vet with a Super Bowl ring dictating terms. This is a rookie quarterback saying, "I'm not your backup plan. I'm your quarterback or I'm not coming." It's bold. It's risky. But in this case, it worked. Because now Shedeur Sanders isn't just the player the Browns refused to trade. He's the player the Ravens tried to build around. The buzz alone from that one leaked rumor reshaped how the league sees him. Which brings us to the Browns, arguably the most fascinating part of this story. The Browns have spent years trying to get the quarterback position right. From high draft picks to veteran trades, it's been a carousel. And then came Shedeur. They saw the same traits the Ravens did. Confidence, arm talent, football IQ, leadership. And when Baltimore came calling, offering them a mountain of picks and players, the Browns had to make a choice. Stick with the plan, or start over. And they didn't hesitate. They told Baltimore no. They told the NFL no. And they told Shedeur without ever needing to say it, "You're our guy." That's not just a roster decision. That's a philosophical shift. Because they could have played the long game. Flipped him for picks. Drafted someone else. Patched other holes. Restructured the depth chart. But instead they planted their flag. They see Shedeur as more than a rookie with upside. They see him as the player their entire offensive identity can be built around. That's a massive statement. And it comes with massive pressure. Because now Sanders isn't just the quarterback. He's the reason they passed on a historic trade package. And let's not pretend the timing of the leak was accidental. It came right before the Ravens-Browns matchup. A game that already carried tension suddenly became ground zero for one of the most intriguing non-trades in recent memory. Which leads many to believe that this leak didn't come from Baltimore. And definitely not from Cleveland. All signs point to Sanders' own circle. Because strategically it made perfect sense. Leak the offer. Watch the media run with it. Let Harbaugh dodge the questions. Let the Browns squirm. And most importantly, let the world know. Teams are already fighting over Shedeur Sanders. It wasn't just about attention, it was about leverage. And if it was leaked intentionally, then mission accomplished. Because now Shedeur's name carries weight. Every team watching saw how Baltimore tried to play their hand early. Every team saw how Cleveland said no. And now, every GM who wasn't sure before has to take a second look. He didn't just gain attention, he gained value. And Harbaugh? His press conference only made it more real. When asked directly, he could have shut it down. No trade. No offer. No interest. But he didn't. He sidestepped. Talked vaguely about team building. Mentioned roster depth. Moved on. And that silence? Said everything. Because if the offer hadn't existed, the easiest thing to do would have been to kill the rumor. Instead, he let it breathe. And in the NFL, silence is rarely accidental. So now we're left with three major takeaways. First, Shedeur Sanders doesn't want to wait his turn. He believes he's ready now. And that belief has already changed how two franchises operate. Second, the Browns are betting the house. They turned down a haul because they see Sanders as the quarterback, not a quarterback. And third, the Ravens exposed their hand. They're not ready to move on from Lamar, but they're thinking about it. They're preparing. And they're not going to wait until it's too late. This whole saga was less about the trade and more about the ripple effect. A young quarterback just forced two franchises to show their cards. One held firm. One tried to pivot. And now Shedeur Sanders is walking into the rest of his career with a target on his back, a valuation that's already sky high and expectations that are only going to grow louder. If he lives up to the hype, this will go down as the non-trade that defined a franchise's era. And if he doesn't, it'll be the moment the Browns let go of the kind of deal that resets your franchise overnight. Either way, this was the story that told us exactly where the NFL is headed. Quarterbacks are more than just players now. They're assets, symbols, leverage points, brands. And Shedeur Sanders just proved he understands that game as well as anyone. The NFL didn't need another headline this week. It already had a full slate of games, quarterback controversies, and weekly injury chaos. But then this dropped. A trade offer so ridiculous in scope, so targeted in timing, that it didn't just rattle front offices. It rewired how people think about rookie quarterbacks entirely. Because when news broke that the Baltimore Ravens were actively pursuing Shedeur Sanders with a potential trade package worth over $100 million in assets, the league lost its mind. And for good reason. This isn't just any rookie quarterback we're talking about. This is the son of Deion Sanders, Coach Prime's heir. The guy who didn't just ride hype out of college, he built his own platform. And now, one of the smartest run organizations in football had reportedly tried to pull off the equivalent of an NFL bank heist just to bring him to Baltimore. Except it didn't happen. The deal stalled. It got too complicated. Or maybe more accurately, too personal. Because when it came down to it, Shedeur wasn't interested in being Lamar Jackson's backup. And let's pause there. That's not some minor footnote in the story. That's the reason this entire mega deal didn't go through. Despite the Ravens seeing Shedeur as their next franchise QB, despite being ready to get a chunk of their current and future roster, Shedeur said no. Not to the team. Not to the opportunity. But to the role. He doesn't want to sit. Not behind anyone. Not even Lamar Jackson. And if you're still underestimating how much that changed the tone of this story, don't. That one condition, from Sanders himself, flipped the entire script. Because Baltimore wasn't looking to throw Shedeur into the fire right away. They were drawing up a plan that would have had him develop behind one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the league. A succession strategy similar to the ones used with Mahomes behind Alex Smith or Jordan Love behind Aaron Rodgers. It's a model that works. Teams love it. But Shedeur? He wasn't playing that game. And suddenly the Ravens had to pull back. Not because they didn't want him, but because he didn't want their timeline. You can argue whether or not that was the right call. But what you can't argue is that it changed everything. And now the Browns, who had been quietly sitting on this future star, found themselves in a position they probably didn't expect this early. They held the most valuable rookie in the league, and they had the chance to flip him for multiple first-round picks, defensive starters, and veteran talent. And they said no. Just like that, Cleveland planted their flag. They weren't just keeping Shedeur because they drafted him. They were keeping him because they believe in him. Because they believe with him, their ceiling is higher than any trade package could offer. That's not normal behavior for a team that spent the better part of the last 2 decades flailing at the quarterback position. This is the same franchise that cycled through over 30 quarterbacks in the span of 20 years. From draft busts to short-term free agents, they've seen it all. But now with Shedeur, they didn't just hesitate on a deal, they flat-out declined it. That speaks volumes about what they see in him. But it also puts them in a precarious position. Because when you reject a $100 million offer for any player, you'd better be right. If Shedeur doesn't pan out, it's not just a missed trade. It's a franchise-altering mistake. It's the kind of decision that front offices get fired over. That fans never forget. That players feel in the locker room when depth issues start showing up in Week 12. So yeah, the Browns made a bold decision. And now they're married to it. Meanwhile, back in Baltimore, the fallout is more subtle, but it's still real. The Ravens showed their hand. They're planning for the future. They're thinking about life after Lamar, even if that's 2, 3, or 5 years from now. And look, that's not disloyalty. That's business. Every front office does it. They just don't always get caught. But now the conversation's out there. And while Lamar Jackson is still the face of the franchise, still elite, still winning, it's hard to pretend this didn't shift the tone in Baltimore just a little bit. Because the Ravens made it clear. They see the end of the road. They're preparing. And Shedeur was supposed to be the bridge to the next era. That's a big deal. And then you have the leak. Let's not gloss over this. The timing was not a coincidence. The story drops right before a Ravens-Browns matchup. 2 divisional rivals. All eyes on them. And suddenly, this narrative explodes about a quarterback most people didn't expect to hear about in trade talks this early. This wasn't an insider slip. This was a precision leak. And that's why so many believe it came from Sanders' camp. Because what better way to elevate your rookie quarterback's profile than to leak that a playoff contending team is ready to move heaven and earth to get him? The media picks it up. Harbaugh refuses to deny it. Cleveland gets painted as the team holding on to something precious. And Sanders? He comes out of it all looking like the most valuable rookie in the NFL. All without saying a single word. That's not luck. That's strategy. And if it was calculated, it worked flawlessly. Now Sanders walks into the rest of the season with more leverage than any rookie not named Caleb Williams. His name carries weight. Teams are paying attention. Fans are speculating. And the Browns? They've basically told the world that Shedeur Sanders is their future. There's no trade fallback now. There's no turning back. And let's be honest, this wasn't just a trade that didn't happen. It was a test of power. And Sanders won. He dictated terms. He refused to be part of a long-term backup plan. He stood his ground. And as a result, both teams, Two AFC franchises, changed course. Whether he knew it or not, Sanders just showed every rookie quarterback in the league that there's another way to do this. That you don't have to play along with the old rules. That if you bet on yourself hard enough, and get a few key people to play the media game with you, you can walk into the NFL with leverage. Real leverage. Now, of course, it comes with a cost. Shedeur's going to be watched like a hawk. Every throw. Every snap. Every rookie mistake is going to be dissected by people who think the Browns should have taken the deal. People who think the Ravens dodged a bullet. That's the trade-off. Once you attach a $100 million price tag to your name, you lose the luxury of a slow start. But if he delivers, then this story becomes legend. Then the Browns look like geniuses. And the Ravens? They look like the team that almost landed the next superstar quarterback. So what happens next? Well, that's the part nobody knows yet. The trade didn't happen. But the door isn't closed. Maybe not with Baltimore, but with someone else. Because now that this story is out there, every team with a question mark at quarterback is reevaluating their depth chart. Because if Sanders was worth that much to the Ravens now, what's he going to be worth once he starts lighting it up on Sundays? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Did the Browns make the right call? Should the Ravens have made a bigger push? And does Shedeur Sanders' refusal to sit make him the next great leader, or a risk teams should think twice about? Tap that like button if you're still stunned by how fast the story escalated. Share it with someone who lives for NFL drama. And subscribe, because if this is the story that almost happened, the one that does happen is going to be even crazier.